Burna Boy, from Port Harcourt streets to global sound. In the sweltering heat of Port Harcourt, where oil money met the cries of the street, where struggle and hustle wore the same face, a boy was born with fire in his soul. His name was Damini Agilu, but the world would come to know him as Burna Boy, born on July 2nd, 1991. Into a family that straddled both the corporate and cultural worlds. Damini was raised by a mother who was a language translator and a father who worked in a welding company. But deeper in his lineage ran the pulse of Afrobeat. His grandfather, Benson Idenige, had managed the legendary Fela Kuti. The sound of Fela's horns, the defiant rhythm of the drums, the politically charged lyrics, those were not just old records in the house. They were blueprints. They were seeds. And Burna Boy, still just a boy, was absorbing it all. As a teenager, he didn't belong to the rich elites of Lagos or the middle class of Abuja. He was Port Harcourt, raw, gritty, hungry, in a place often forgotten, where oil well flowed like rivers but rarely reached the people. He started to write songs, not for fame, not for approval, but because his soul was overflowing with stories. He moved to Lagos in search of a bigger stage. There he sharpened his sound. Not quite hip-hop, not quite reggae, not pure Afrobeat. It was something else. Something only he understood. A fusion of cultures, accents, and pain. He named it Afrofusion. He didn't care if the world wasn't ready. In 2012, Burna Boy released Like the Party. It was a slow burner, sneaking its way into clubs, parties, and campuses. The sound was different. It wasn't fast-paced Afropop like Wizkid or Davido. It had bounce, but also depth. By the time Tonight and Yawa Day dropped, Burna was no longer an underground artist. He had arrived. But fame in Nigeria was fickle. It loved you one day and forgot you the next. In 2013, he released his debut studio album, LIFE, an acronym for Leaving an Impact for Eternity. The album was quickly acclaimed and featured collaborations with big names like Baba, M.I, and Wizkid. Songs like Run My Race became street anthems. Burna was seen as the next big thing. Then silence, legal troubles, immigration issues, attitude problems. The industry, already crowded with young stars, seemed to be moving on without him. Burna had a reputation. Arrogant, temperamental, unpredictable. By 2015, many thought he had lost his way. Even after the release of On a Spaceship, his second album, he was largely overshadowed by his peers. But Burna Boy was never built to follow a straight path. He disappeared, not into irrelevance, but into rebirth. He traveled. He studied. He listened. He watched the world. From London to South Africa, from New York studios to Caribbean islands, he redefined his identity. By 2017, he began his silent return. He released Rock Your Body, GBA, and Streets of Africa. They didn't explode immediately, but they were laying bricks for what was coming. In 2018, Burna Boy dropped Outside, a project that would catapult him from Nigeria's unpredictable artist to Africa's global voice. The standout track, Yee, was an anthem. Ironically, it gained massive popularity after fans searching for Kanye West's album Ye stumbled upon Burna's song. But what started as an algorithm accident became a worldwide blessing. Yee was fire. It had horns that called out to the ancestors, a bounce that invited the diaspora, and lyrics that captured the frustration of Nigerian youth struggling in a country that had forgotten him. Suddenly, Burna Boy wasn't just local. He was international. In 2019, he released African Giant, an album that declared his status boldly and unapologetically. From the Grammy stage to Coachella, Burna Boy roared. He fought for Africa's representation, criticized the world's ignorance, and demanded respect. Coachella had billed him in small letters. He went online and blasted them. "I am an African giant," he said. It wasn't ego. It was truth. The album featured collaborations with Future, Georgia Smith, YG, and Damian Marley. Songs like Bona, Anybody, Collateral Damage, and Dangote mixed protest, pleasure, and pain in ways few had done before. He was nominated for the Best World Music Album at the 2020 Grammys. He lost, but he didn't stop. In 2020, when the world went silent during the pandemic, Burna Boy released Twice as Tall. It was a masterpiece. Executive produced by Diddy, it was a global album that still carried Nigel Blood. Monsters You Made, 23, and Way Too Big showcase a man who was more than a musician. He was a movement. This time, he won the Grammy. Best Global Music Album. History was made. But fame, especially global fame, was a double-edged sword. Burna Boy faced controversies. From accusations of arrogance to altercations in clubs, from rumored beefs with other artists to online rants. But through it all, one thing remained unshaken: his music. In 2022, he released Love, Damini. It was his most personal project yet. Named after his real name, it pulled the curtain back on the man behind the stardom. Songs like Last, where he sampled Toni Braxton's He Wasn't Man Enough, revealed heartbreak, vulnerability, and resilience. Last became a global summer anthem. From TikTok to Times Square, Burna Boy was everywhere. He sold out Madison Square Garden, the first Nigerian artist to do so. He performed at the Billboard Music Awards. He appeared on The Daily Show and Late Night American TV. But beyond the stages and accolades, Burna Boy carried something heavier: the hopes of a continent, the struggles of his people, the story of a boy from Port Harcourt who had found his voice and used it not just to entertain but to provoke thought. He began to speak more about injustice, police brutality, and government failure. During the End SARS protests in Nigeria, he funded billboards, offered support to victims, and used his platform to amplify the voices of the unheard. Burna Boy had become more than an artist. He was a cultural icon. He wasn't trying to be loved. He wasn't chasing trends. He wasn't aiming to please. He was telling the truth, loudly, rhythmically, and unapologetically. From Fela's spiritual successor to the face of Afrofusion, Burna Boy had built a legacy that was bigger than charts and awards. He had proven that African music didn't have to dilute itself to be global. It could speak its own language and still be understood. He didn't just represent Nigeria. He represented the contradiction of being African in a global world. Beautiful yet broken, joyful yet grieving, rich in soul but poor in justice. Today, Burna Boy walks among legends. He headlines world festivals, rubs shoulders with billionaires, and commands stages that once seemed impossible for a boy from Port Harcourt. But he hasn't forgotten. Not the city, not the pain, not the reasons he started. Every time he steps on stage, every beat he crafts, every lyric he spits, carries the weight of 1,000 silent voices. Those who may never leave the trenches, those who may never find a mic, those whose stories die before they're told. Through Burna Boy they sing. And in that sound, the world finally listens. Please subscribe to our channel for more and follow our social media platform.